If you guys don't already know, we are building a modern version of the 1941 Willys MB in the year 2025 with our brand new 2025 Jeep Wrangler. In today's video, we're going to completely fabricate and get ready our front bumper assembly and also add on a couple touches to the back bumper. Without further ado, let's get started on recreating a 1941 Willys MB bumper onto our Jeep. To start off on this front bumper, obviously we had to do some research on the history of the front end of the Willys MB, what the sizing looked like, what it actually had to kind of characteristically look like, and then also what we wanted ours to look like while trying to replicate the history, but once again, be able to make it fit on a 2025 Jeep Wrangler. Now back in the day, I believe the specification for the front end of that Jeep would have been a 46 or a 48 inch wide C-channel front bumper. Now in ours, we made some modifications to that, but 46 to 48 inches wide was almost as wide as the entire Jeep. Needless to say, 2025, our vehicles are a lot wider than from 1941. Back in the day though, they wouldn't have had a winch unless it was a top mounted hand crank winch, or even like, it was like a rope carrier, they actually spooled rope around, but the entire front end was completely smoothed out and the bumper was part of the frame. There were no bracketry, there was a couple little supports, but everything was welded together and there was actually no separated structure. Now in our version of this, we had to take all of this into account. The first problem is that the Jeep was significantly wider in 2025. I'm talking probably 20 to 30 inches wider compared to the original. The second thing is unless you guys are crazy enough to do so, we didn't want to cut the front of our frame off. We knew that we wanted to still make sure that this thing could be removed, and we weren't ready to go completely gung-ho and chop the entire front of the frame off. The third thing that we wanted to do was, this would have been different than back in the day, but we wanted to incorporate a winch. We took a lot of time to consider. I was debating back and forth, do we really go for that original look, or do we add a winch to help recover when we are off on the trails, when we take our other Jeeps out? And ultimately it was decided, let's put a winch on this thing. And then that led into a whole nother host of issues. We're now adding on a winch, a C-channel bumper, something that needs to be removable. We're not cutting the frame, and it needs to be able to clear everything. So obviously we shot a lot down at Locked and Loaded 4x4, and we were able to get this thing completely fabricated up. And when I say we, Alex and Joe were the main driving force of fabrication. Those guys are absolutely masters when it comes to metalworks. We talked about a winch there in the intro, so we knew we wanted to put a winch on it. Now the winch on there too, we want to talk about that because there's been a lot of comments. It's a Badlands ZXR 12,000 pound winch. It has steel cable and a roller fair lead, which we do plan on swapping both of those out, but the winch was like 200 bucks on sale at Harbor Freight over Black Friday. And I actually went through a lot of different winch plates to be able to order one that would mount in between the frame rails and also not stick out too far where it was going to affect the C-channel on the front bumper. I eventually landed on an AEV winch plate and we installed it and we got kind of everything mocked up where we wanted to. So we're having a little bit of an issue with the way that this winch, like the AEV plate that I ordered, it like angles the winch. And we can tuck it back like to there, but we need a little bit of a space to space that bumper out. So that should be a good solution. I don't know what you think, but that was a little bit of a hiccup and not really too much of a big ordeal. But we got all that mounted up and everything was looking good. You know, we got the frame horns there with our 8 bolts and we got to talking, you know, how do we do this? Do we drill through the C-channel and kind of just mount bolt heads and go through? Do we try and make it a flush finish? And we landed on a flush finish. When you look back at the original Willys MB, the CJ2As, in fact, everything from the Willys MB up until the JK period, so you're talking 70 plus years, was a C-channel front bumper. Now, it had multiple iterations. Some were welded to the frame, and then afterwards they started bolting them on. But when we looked outside, the TJs that were sitting there, the YJs that were sitting there, you guys recall all of them were either bent C-channel or they were just steel welded to the frame. That was an iconic look for a very long period of the Jeep. And we wanted to keep that iconic look, but we had to figure out how to make it work on the front of our Jeep. Now we landed on the width that we chose because of the width of the factory bumper on the Willys MB, which I want to quote was 46 or 48 inches. And the actual measurements of our 2024 grille are about 46, right around there. So we wanted to make the edge of the bumper land with the edge of the grille. When we chose this, it looks really clean. It doesn't stick out too far, and I think it does flow down pretty nicely. The problem we ran into with C-channel, which we use C6x13, one of the heaviest duty C-channels you can buy, this stuff is almost 3/8 to half an inch at certain points, was that when you put it on, it fits over the frame horns, but now the top of the C-channel would have had to been notched out to go around the winch. The winch was sticking out too far, and it would have had to been notched to sit there flush. Now, we had a little bit of back and forth kind of talking about this because, in my personal opinion, I wanted the bumper to sit as far back as we could. I didn't want it sticking out that far. I wanted it to go wrap around and be as close to the grill as possible. But after talking about this, there really wasn't any way to keep the C-channel structure and not notch it out without spacing the bumper forward. Now, to do that, there was a couple different ways that we thought of being able to do that. But ultimately, what was decided was Alex went on the table, he cut some of our 2x2 stock, cut a large hole in the back of both, pushed a stud through a bolt, welded that through a second hole, and what we have here is a bumper that can be removed just like the stock one. He was ingenious of thinking about this because it's spaced out perfectly where we didn't have to notch the C-channel, but then welding in the studs from the backside means that we can take off the nuts on the back, pull the bumper off, and then push it back on. And the cool part with this is it's the exact same as a stock bumper. After we ultimately decided to space it out, it fits around the winch perfectly. It looks really clean, but then when we went out to look at the CJ2A that he actually has sitting out front, there actually is a little bit of space and a little bit of kind of bracketry right before the front bumper before it's welded on. So this does look the part as well. I wonder how it's gonna hold off off-road. You think it'll be okay?
I'm sure it will be okay.
I'm a little nervous if it holds up off-road. So while we were doing all this, we wanted to jump cut to the back bumper because there was one other thing we had to install. I don't think it's gonna hold up off-road though.
It's definitely not gonna hold up off-road. We should try to pick it up by the tire carrier to see what happens.
You have a forklift to your abilities. So while this is a front bumper video, we did want to make one final touch to the rear bumper, and that was to make it look like the original. So the original, you actually have just like that. You got a jerry can on the back. We didn't use a jerry can in that mount. We could have picked something like that up, but we actually went on Roto Packs made in the USA and picked up 2 of these. Now these are for potable water, not for fuel, but they're 2-gallon Roto Packs, and I don't know, with the olive drab color, I think it's gonna look better. Give it kind of a little bit of modern touch, and then these are a lot more squared off than a jerry can, which matches the bumper and the style we were going for. So
I don't know if this is gonna hold up off-road.
we have all that, but we got to figure out how to put it to the left of the tire. Originally, I was like, why don't we mount something on the tailgate? We can fabricate a bracket that it's sitting there. And I thought to myself, why would we do that when we already have all this structure we can easily weld to? So what we did, and what Alex and Joe did, they took some of our 2x2, cut it down to length. We mocked up exactly where the Rotopack should sit, that they were about an inch or 2 away from the edge of the tire, similar to the factory of a Willys MB, same height as the center hub bore. And then they cut some steel, made a bracket, a gusseted bracket, and then welded. They actually cut part of the Rotopack's mount, cut that, bolted the base plate on, and welded that to it. So if we ever want to take that bracket off, it's never coming off. And also then Alex did something to prove that this thing will be okay off-road. He actually climbed up on the bumper and then stood on the edge of the Rotopack's mount where the 2x2 is welded. He stood on it. It's going to be fine, I think, you know, especially it's only holding 40 pounds of water and a little tire. But we got all that mounted up, put the Rotopacks on, and I want to tell you, I think that was the way to complete the whole rear end look. I know this is a front bumper video, but I think that, based upon, we posted a story on Instagram, the amount of likes on that story, you guys just loved it. And we do too. I think it looks perfect. It completes the look. We didn't get to show it to you. And the other thing is too, when we reveal these bumpers, when they're back from powder coat and paint, everything we're doing, we will have some other final touches that we'll show you. So don't worry, we're getting a license plate light and there will be a camera location. But it will come, but there's no point in doing it while it's still raw steel just to unbolt it all. So don't worry, it's coming. Now, like I said, we didn't focus a ton on the front bumper because we had so much going on in the back, but I am ultimately extremely happy at how it turned out. And I think honestly, it's time for us to show you here at the shop what this bumper turned into. On today's Here of the Video, we'd like to honor Jason's grandfather by showing some of the photos that he was able to submit to us. Now, Jason's grandfather, he was able to get his photo album for when he served in the Army Air Corps during World War II on the Western Front. He says from what he's found, he was a mechanic during the war and was also able to take a camera with him, which is extremely vital in the history and the preservation of what these men and women endured during these fights. But what is really cool is that some of these photos too, he actually sent one of us here of him, and it looks like some friends. He is the one driving the Jeep in the photo. So I can actually see a spare tire cover on there, and it's really neat to see that our veterans and our fans are showing kind of what they have of their family members, and to see a glimpse of the history and sacrifices that they made to make this build possible. So thank you for your service, and if you guys have a veteran that you would like us to honor, be sure to send us an email. We will leave everything down below in the description. All right, guys, it is time to reveal these. We're gonna show off what we did on the front bumper, and we are just extremely happy with how these turned out. It is hard to actually make a flush mounted bumper like this and make it all function, work, still be able to be removed and actually look great, which in our opinion, this looks absolutely fantastic and is exactly what we were going for. Now we did bolt up the roller fair lead and the winch hook just for now for aesthetic purposes. This will all be coming off, and we do have some modifications to the winch that we're going to be making as well. So do not worry, that is all going to get changed up. But looking at this, when you look at the front end, this really does complete the look that we were going for. The edge of this is very close to the edge of the front of the 2024 grille and actually doesn't protrude out much further than the edge of the fender flare. Now the reason for that is because we are swapping these out, and in fact, after this video, I will be starting to remove all of the factory sport flares and begin test fitting what we're going to be installing. Another note to mention to you guys, these bumpers are not finished. They are in raw steel, they're already starting to get surface rust, and they are going to be professionally finished in a paint powder coat or something that you're gonna have to wait to see the final reveal of, because I think it's gonna be pretty cool once they're all done. But on the front bumper, yeah, extremely happy. I was nervous about seeing these frame horns, Ryan. You can actually see kind of like the edge of them right here. But when we looked at that front bumper on that original Jeep out front, it looks very similar to what this is. Joe even said if we wanted to take a step further, he could cut pieces on the plasma table to weld onto here and kind of make it look like it flows into the frame. But some part of that is like less is more, you know. Then we start adding custom brackets, another bolt hole, another location. I like it the way it looks. I think it looks aggressive. I think it looks the part. And I will tell you, when we were driving it home from Locked and Loaded, everyone was going like this and honking and looking at the Jeep. I think when these are all painted, finished up, and we do have all the decals for them, which we'll show you once we install them, these are going to look perfect. But let's walk around. Let's show you the back quick too, because we didn't actually get to show you guys that on camera. We just took a photo of it. So on the back here, we were able to finish this off and get the roto packs mounted up right on this side of the tire. Now, we wanted to give a little bit of gap here because on the original ones, they had about an inch gap between the jerry can. And in our opinion, like, we're still going for, this is still a 2025 Wrangler. Like, that's the hardest part, is like, we can go as original as we want, but this is still a 2025. It's got a 12.3 wireless Uconnect on there. Like, it's not a old Jeep, so we wanted to incorporate some of the modern. This is not an exact match to this, but I really do think it finished it off. Now this is 2x2 welded on steel onto the back. And what do you think, Ryan? Do you think I can? I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know.
Do you think the bumper will hold up off road? I mean, okay. So let's go to right. Here's the edge of it. Here's the edge. Look at me. I'm not holding anything. Do you think it'll hold up? We've got some future plans with these. We got a little bit of things to add on, but the second thing is, like, we want to get this content to you guys as well. So if we take these bumpers, we create them, we get them painted, we get them finished, we get all this, that done, that could be a month or 2 months, and it almost seems like, hey, where's the 41 build? Have you guys stopped? It takes a lot to do this on and off camera to get it done, and we just want to make sure that we're showing you guys what we're doing, how we're doing it, and we're excited to bring you this style of content. So do not worry, we got some final touches for the front bumper. I might tweak the back bumper a little bit on maybe some ease of use, but you got to remember, this is a two-door. It's purpose built for this look, and I'm happy with it. So I think we can flip that tire down as many times as we want, but I might have a little bit of a solution to help out. And I could do it off camera. I think I'm gonna do it off camera, just so my wife can get groceries. And before we close it out, we're gonna throw on another decal of the video. I know this one is the same as the last video, but we've got a spot for it. So why don't I'll go grab a rag, clean off the location, and we'll put this one on. What I did here was trying to make it the same distance here from the top of this to the gas can, so it looks where it should be. So it can go right here. There we go. Another decal, another one added, only 2 million more to go. All right, guys, thank you for watching this video. If you don't mind, drop a comment down below. We'd love to continue the conversation down there. But from Ryan behind the camera and me here in front of you, we want you to get out there and earn yours.